She was the kind of woman who made a room brighter just by walking into it. The kind of woman men noticed and women studied. Everything about her seemed carefully assembled. The way she dressed, the way she spoke, the way she made you feel like you were the only person in the world when she looked at you. I thought I'd found something rare. Turns out I'd found something else entirely. This is the story of how I learned the difference between what someone shows you and who they actually are. And if you're a man navigating the modern dating world, especially if you've been out of it for a while, you need to hear this. Because the lesson I learned cost me more than I want to admit, but it might save you from paying the same price at work. She'd just been hired into a different department, but our paths crossed regularly. From the first conversation, something clicked. She was intelligent, not just book smart. She had that quick wit, that ability to read a room and say exactly the right thing. She remembered details about conversations from weeks before. She asked questions that showed she was actually listening, not just waiting for her turn to talk. And she was beautiful, not in a way that felt intimidating or unapproachable. In a way that felt warm, accessible, like beauty that wanted to be noticed but didn't need to be worshipped. Everyone seemed to gravitate toward her. She had this gift for making people feel special, for creating instant rapport. I watched her do it with coworkers, with clients, with the security guard at the front desk. Everyone got the same treatment, that focused attention, and that genuine interest. At the time, I thought that was just who she was. A naturally warm person, someone who cared about people. I didn't understand, yet that charm can be a skill, not a personality trait. That some people learn to create connection the way others learn to code or play piano through practice, repetition, and a clear understanding of what they're trying to achieve. Looking back, the signs were there from the start. She was almost too good at making people feel comfortable, too smooth, too polished. But when you're attracted to someone, you interpret those things favorably. You see social intelligence rather than social manipulation. You see warmth rather than strategy. Our conversations got longer. Lunch breaks together, walks after work. The kind of organic progression that feels natural, unforced. She shared things with me that felt private, stories about her childhood, frustrations with her family, dreams she said she'd never told anyone else. Each revelation felt like a gift, like she was choosing me specifically to trust with pieces of herself. I shared too, probably too much looking back. I told her about my divorce, about the years I'd spent rebuilding myself, about what I was looking for in my next chapter. I was vulnerable in ways I hadn't been in a long time. She listened to all of it. She validated my experiences. She said things like, "You deserve someone who appreciates you, and most men wouldn't have the self-awareness to grow like you have." She made me feel seen. What I didn't realize was that I was telling her exactly what I wanted to hear, and she was smart enough to give it back to me. I bought her small gifts, nothing excessive. A book she'd mentioned wanting, coffee when she seemed tired, a scarf when she complained about the cold. She accepted everything gracefully with what seemed like genuine appreciation. In my mind, we were building towards something. The connection was obvious. The trajectory was clear. I was just waiting for the right moment to make it official. What I didn't realize is that this entire progression, the shared intimacies, the gradual deepening, the feeling of being chosen was happening with other men, too. She was running the same playbook simultaneously, each of us believing we were experiencing something unique. The gifts I gave her were probably joining gifts from others. The secrets she shared weren't exclusive revelations. They were standard material deployed as needed to create the illusion of special access. Looking back, meeting someone at work created problems I didn't anticipate. The professional environment gave everything a veneer of legitimacy. She wasn't some stranger from a dating app. She was someone I saw daily, someone vouched for by the very act of being employed at a reputable company. That created a false sense of knowing her. It also created pressure I didn't recognize at the time. I didn't want to be the creepy coworker. I didn't want to rush things and make the office awkward. So, I moved slowly, carefully, respectfully, which she may have been counting on. The workplace context also limited what I could see. I only saw her in one environment, playing one role. I had no visibility into her life outside those walls. I filled in the blanks with assumptions, and every assumption was favorable. That's the danger of workplace romance that nobody talks about. You think you're getting to know someone, but you're really just watching them perform the same character 5 days a week. She was always available, but never too available. That probably sounds like a contradiction, but anyone who's experienced it knows exactly what I mean. She'd respond to texts, but not immediately. She'd accept invitations, but sometimes she had other plans she couldn't change. She was warm when we were together, but there was always a slight sense that her attention could be withdrawn at any moment. I interpreted this as healthy boundaries. As someone who had her own life, her own interests, her own demands on her time, I respected it. I found it attractive, even a sign of maturity. What I understand now is that controlled availability is a strategy. It maintains interest by preventing satisfaction. It keeps the other person slightly off balance, slightly uncertain, slightly hungry for more. It's a way of holding power in a dynamic while appearing passive. I was being managed. I just didn't know it. When I finally told her how I felt, that I wanted us to be something more than coworkers who grabbed coffee, she didn't say no. She said she needed time. She explained that she'd been hurt before, that she wanted to be sure, that she needed to sort through some things in her own life before she could fully commit to exploring something new. She said all of this with such apparent sincerity, such vulnerability that my heart actually went out to her. I told her I understood. I told her I'd wait. I told her there was no pressure. And I meant it, every word, because I believed her. What I've learned since requests for time are often delay tactics. They're a way of keeping options open without committing to any of them. They allow someone to continue receiving attention, gifts, emotional support, and the validation of being pursued, all without making any promises they might have to keep. I waited. She kept her options open. The arrangement worked perfectly for her. Intuition is a funny thing. It notices patterns before the conscious mind can articulate them. It picks up on inconsistencies that logic hasn't processed yet. Small things started nagging at me. Her phone was always face down. She'd step away to take calls. Sometimes she'd mention weekend plans that seemed vague, as if she was deliberately not providing details. When I asked about her life outside work, her answers were skilled but somehow thin. She'd share anecdotes that felt rehearsed. She'd redirect conversations away from certain topics so smoothly I almost didn't notice. I noticed that she complained about men a lot. How they only wanted one thing. How she'd been used in the past. How hard it was to find someone genuine. I listened sympathetically, playing the role of the guy who wasn't like that. It didn't occur to me yet that someone who talks constantly about being treated badly might be telling you who they are, not who others are. But the doubts were there beneath the surface. I just wasn't ready to listen to them. Money is one of those areas where people's true character leaks through, no matter how carefully they manage their image. She was always broke. Not in an obvious way. She dressed well, kept up appearances, but there were constant small crises, unexpected bills, card declined at embarrassing moments, requests to borrow small amounts that somehow never got repaid. I helped when I could. That seemed like what a good partner would do, what someone who cared would do. I told myself it wasn't about the money. It was about being there for someone who was struggling. What I didn't ask myself, why was someone with a decent job always in financial trouble? What was she spending money on? Why did she seem to have no savings, no safety net, no ability to manage the basic economics of adult life? Financial irresponsibility is a warning sign I ignored because I wanted to be generous. But debt, borrowing, and secrecy about money usually signal deeper issues with accountability, planning, and impulse control. Someone who can't manage their finances often can't manage other important things either. Truth rarely announces itself. It has to be uncovered. A mutual acquaintance mentioned something offhand. A comment that didn't match what I thought I knew. A name I didn't recognize in a context that didn't fit. I started paying closer attention, not obsessively, not paranoid, just awake, noticing things I'd been trained not to notice, asking questions I'd been too polite to ask before. And piece by piece, a different picture emerged. There was another man. Actually, there were multiple men. I wasn't the only one receiving those thoughtful texts, those meaningful conversations, those signals of special connection. I was one of several, each of us believing we were uniquely chosen. Each of us operating on information she carefully controlled. The time she needed, she was using it to manage multiple relationships simultaneously. The vague weekend plans, she was with someone else. The financial troubles. Money was flowing in from various sources, each one believing he was helping a woman who was temporarily struggling. I wasn't her priority. I was her backup. One option among several kept warm in case the better options fell through. The realization hit me in stages. First, denial. There had to be some explanation. Then bargaining. Maybe it wasn't as bad as it looked. Then the cold clarity of acceptance. I had been played. Not in some dramatic movie villain way. Just quietly, efficiently managed by someone who was very good at keeping multiple people invested while committing to none of them. The more I learned, the more I realized I'd only seen a fraction of who she was. She had perfected the art of compartmentalization. Different men served different purposes. One provided financial stability, another provided social access, another provided emotional validation. I apparently provided something. I'm still not entirely sure what. Each of us knew a different version of her. Each version was tailored to what that particular man wanted to see. She was a mirror reflecting back whatever would keep each source of supply engaged. This is what I mean by parallel relationships, not cheating in the traditional sense. She wasn't officially committed to anyone, so technically nothing was being violated, but multiple emotional and sometimes physical connections running simultaneously, each person in the dark about the others. She wasn't lying exactly. She just wasn't telling the whole truth. Selective honesty, revealing only what served her in the moment, keeping the rest hidden, not through active deception, but through strategic omission. As I processed what I'd learned, I started connecting dots I'd ignored before. The stories she'd told me about her family, the instability, the revolving door of partners in her mother's life, the chaos she'd grown up in, which she'd framed as trauma, but which now looked more like a template. We often repeat what we're raised with, even when we claim to reject it. The dysfunction becomes normal. The chaos becomes comfortable. Boundaries that weren't modeled don't get learned. I'm not excusing her behavior. Understanding isn't the same as excusing, but it helped me see that what I'd experienced wasn't personal. It wasn't about me specifically failing or being inadequate. It was a pattern she'd probably been running since adolescence. Learned from watching the adults in her life do the same thing. Generational patterns repeat until someone breaks them. She hadn't broken hers. She'd just gotten better at disguising them. When I finally confronted her calmly, without drama, just laying out what I'd learned, her reaction told me everything I needed to know. There was no shame, no embarrassment, no tearful apology or attempt to explain, just a kind of blank acknowledgement followed by justification. She was single, wasn't she? She hadn't promised anyone anything, had she? What was wrong with exploring options? Why was I being so possessive when we weren't even officially together? And technically, she was right. On paper, no agreement had been violated. No vows had been broken. But there's a difference between technical innocence and ethical behavior. There's a difference between what you can defend legally and what you'd be proud to have everyone see. She showed no awareness that she'd caused harm. No recognition that leading multiple people to believe they were special while extracting attention and resources from each might be problematic. She framed her behavior as independence, as self-protection, a smart dating strategy. That's when any remaining attraction died. Not because of what she'd done, but because of the complete absence of accountability for it. What struck me most was how easily she moved on from the conversation. Within minutes, she was talking about something else entirely, as if we'd been discussing the weather rather than a fundamental breach of trust. There was no processing, no reflection, no apparent emotional response at all. Just a seamless transition to the next topic, the next interaction, the next opportunity. I realized I was looking at someone who had done this many times before. The confrontation wasn't a crisis for her. It was a minor inconvenience, a slight adjustment to her system. One source of supply becoming unavailable to be replaced by another. The machine kept running. Something interesting happens when illusion collapses completely. Feelings disappear almost instantly. I thought I'd be devastated. I thought there would be grief, a mourning process for what I thought we were building. But when I saw clearly who she actually was, not the persona, the actual person, there was nothing left to feel for. You can't miss someone who never existed. The woman I'd been falling for was a construction, a character designed to appeal to what I wanted. The real person behind that character was someone I didn't know at all, and once revealed, didn't want to know. The emotional detachment was almost eerie in its completeness. One day I would have done almost anything for her. The next day I felt nothing but a kind of cold clarity. That taught me something valuable. Genuine love requires knowing the real person. What I'd felt was attraction to an illusion. When the illusion dissolved, so did the attraction. Instantly, completely looking back with clear eyes, I could see the transactional nature of everything. Every gift I gave was received and filed. Every act of generosity was noted and expected to continue. The warmth I received was proportional to my usefulness. When I provided value, attention, money, emotional support, the connection flowed. When I needed something in return, there was always a reason why now wasn't a good time. I realized I'd been viewing the relationship through a lens of partnership, while she was viewing it through a lens of exchange. We were playing different games entirely. Some people genuinely view relationships this way. Intimacy is traded for provision. Attention is exchanged for resources. It's not necessarily malicious. It's just how they've learned to navigate the world. But if you're looking for genuine connection and you're dealing with someone operating transactionally, you'll always come out with less than you put in. Here's where I have to be honest about my own failures. The red flags were there from the beginning. I chose not to see them. The constant complaints about men while simultaneously collecting male attention, that was a warning sign. The financial instability despite a decent income, that was a warning sign. The vague answers about her personal life, warning sign. The request for time that somehow never led anywhere, warning sign. I ignored all of it because I wanted to believe the image she was presenting. I let attraction override observation. I let hope override evidence. I let my desire for connection cloud my judgment about who I was trying to connect with. That's not her fault. That's mine. I was so eager to believe in what I wanted that I actively filtered out information that contradicted it. Every piece of evidence that should have given me pause, I explained away. Every inconsistency, I rationalized. I was my own worst enemy in this situation. Not because I trusted someone untrustworthy, but because I refused to accept what my own observations were telling me. Yes, she was deceptive. Yes, she managed information to keep me engaged while keeping her options open. But I was a willing participant in my own deception. I saw what I wanted to see and ignored the rest. Part of my mistake was re-entering the dating world with expectations that no longer matched reality. I grew up with one set of rules. Dating today operates by a completely different set. The exclusivity I assumed was being built, that's apparently not automatic anymore. You have to explicitly request it, define the relationship, have the talk. Nothing is assumed. She wasn't operating outside modern norms. In her mind, she was doing exactly what the current dating culture permits, keeping options open, not committing until forced to, maximizing her position in the marketplace. That doesn't make it right. But it does mean that men returning to dating after time away need to understand the landscape has changed. What seemed like obvious signals of interest and commitment in the past might mean nothing today. Assume nothing. Verify everything. Define terms early. So what did this experience actually teach me? First, watch actions, not words. Anyone can say the right things. Character is revealed through behavior over time. Pay attention to what people do when they think no one important is watching. Notice the discrepancies between what they claim and how they live. Second, trust intuition. That nagging feeling, that slight discomfort, that sense that something doesn't quite add up. It's usually right. Your subconscious processes information faster than your conscious mind. When it sends up a warning flare, investigate. Third, maintain boundaries. I gave access to my emotions, my resources, my time, all without any real commitment from the other side. That's not generosity. That's lack of self-protection. Clear boundaries would have revealed her true character much faster. Fourth, charm is not character. Social skill is not virtue. The ability to make people feel good is a tool that can be used for connection or manipulation. Don't confuse someone being good at relationships with someone being good in relationships. Fifth, information asymmetry is dangerous. If someone knows everything about you while you know almost nothing about their real life, you're at a severe disadvantage. Equalize the information before deepening the investment. Sixth, verify independently. Don't rely solely on what someone tells you about themselves. Meet their friends. See their living situation. Understand how they spend their time when you're not around. The fuller picture you have, the harder it is for someone to maintain a false image. Seventh, move slowly. Time reveals character. Someone running a manipulation can usually maintain it for weeks, maybe months. But over time, the mask slips. The inconsistencies accumulate. The real person emerges. Patience is protection. I won't pretend this experience didn't change me. Before this, I was probably naive. I believed that genuine effort and honest intentions would be recognized and reciprocated. I thought that if you showed up authentically, you'd attract people who did the same. I don't believe that anymore. Not because everyone is deceptive. They're not. But because deceptive people are skilled at appearing genuine and without vigilance. You can't tell the difference until it's too late. Some would call this becoming jaded. I call it becoming realistic. The world contains people who will use your good nature against you. Knowing that doesn't have to make you cold, but it should make you careful. I lost some of my romantic idealism. What I gained was clarity. And looking back, it was an expensive but necessary trait. There's a phrase I've come to appreciate. Emotional pain is the tuition fee for wisdom. Every red flag I ignored came with a cost. The time I invested, the money I spent, the emotional energy I poured into something that was never real, the opportunity cost of not pursuing connections with people who might have been genuine. I paid that tuition. It hurt, but I learned things I couldn't have learned any other way. And here's the thing. I'd rather have paid that price at this stage than continued naive and paid a higher price later. A failed situationship is painful. A divorce from someone like this would have been catastrophic. In a strange way, I'm grateful. Not for the deception, but for the education. The woman everyone wanted was never real. The real person was someone who had learned to perform connection without feeling it. Someone who had turned charm into a survival skill and used it to extract value from everyone around her. Someone who saw relationships as transactions and people as resources. I don't hate her. I don't think she's evil. I think she's broken in ways she probably doesn't even recognize. Running patterns that were programmed into her long before I ever met her. But understanding someone's damage doesn't mean you have to accept being damaged by them. If you're a man navigating the dating world, especially if you've been out of it for a while, learn from my mistake. Watch actions, not words. Trust your intuition. Maintain boundaries. Recognize that charm is a skill, not proof of character. And never assume commitment that hasn't been explicitly confirmed. The truth no one saw was hiding in plain sight. I just wasn't looking for it. Now I am. And if you've been through something similar, if you're recognizing parts of your own story and what I've described, know that the confusion you felt wasn't your fault. These situations are designed to be confusing. The deception only works if you don't see it coming, but now you can see it. And seeing it is the first step toward never experiencing it again. If this story hit close to home, you're not alone. And if you want to understand why the modern dating landscape makes experiences like this more common than ever, click here to watch that next.